media project.
Excuse me, do you mind if I join you? Are you sure you don't mind? You're absolutely sure about me disturbing you?
Flag on the moon. How did it get there?
Hello and welcome to the Mental Suppository. I'm Bret Herholtz.
And I'm Andrew Shanley.
And today we're going to be talking bad movies.
Bad movies.
Movies so bad, they're not just B movies. These have actually been relegated as Z movies. And we will discuss this right after a word from our sponsor.
New for the Sully Wool Station 5 comes Jackass Kong! The classic arcade game gets an all-new look, featuring a brand new audio option so you can hear what the characters are saying.
Hey, Jackass Kong, bring Pauline down here now.
Why don't you come up here and make me tough guy?
All right, I will, you bastard.
Yeah? Well, maybe I'll throw this barrel at you.
Don't you dare throw that barrel at me.
Oh, I'm throwing this barrel at you.
Don't you dare throw that barrel at me.
I'm throwing this barrel at
Don't you dare throw this barrel at me. Son of a bitch, he hit me with a barrel.
Yeah? And later, I'm gonna hit your girlfriend's sweet ass.
You really are a jackass, Kong.
That's not what your mom said.
That's it, I'll get you for that, you big ape.
Hey, who you calling a big ape?
I'm calling you a big ape.
Your girlfriend didn't seem to mind.
Oh, that's it, I'm coming for you.
So's your girlfriend.
You son of a bitch, come here.
Pick it up today, along with Pole Position, Mass Turnpike Edition.
I'm gonna hit you with this missile launcher I attached to the top of my Volkswagen Bug.
Don't you dare hit me with that missile.
Oh, I'm gonna hit you with this missile.
Don't you dare hit me with that missile.
Oh, I'm gonna hit you with this missile.
Son of a bitch! You hit me with that missile!
And later I'm gonna fire my missile at your old lady.
Oh, you son of a bitch. Only on Sully Wool Station 5. We laugh in the face of copyright.
Over the years, people have always considered Ed Wood to be the worst film director and Plan 9 to be the worst film ever made. But as time progressed, I really have to disagree. I mean, I think I've found that, I think a lot of people have found that, there are far worse film directors than Ed Wood. And I mean, given, I'm not giving Ed Wood a pass. I mean, his movies like Plan 9 from Outer Space or The Violent Years they're incompetent movies, but there are directors and filmmakers even more incompetent than Ed Wood. And the thing I will give Ed Wood credit for is the fact, even though his movies they're bad movies. Let's be honest, they're bad movies, but they still have an entertainment value to them. You could still watch them.
Well, they fall under that. They're so bad, they're good, and so therefore you can laugh at them.
Absolutely.
Whereas,
especially the two we're going to mention at the top of the list today, these are movies that are so bad that even though they've been showed on Mystery Science Theater 3000, they're still very, very hard to watch. And the first one I want to mention is a director by the name of Coleman Francis, who directed all of 3 films in his directing career. I mean, I guess he acted in a lot of stuff, but he had like 3 films, all of which were only discovered by a new generation because they were shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000. And the best way to describe Coleman Francis, and this was described by Tom Servo's voice, Kevin Murphy, he says, Coleman Francis uses edits like blunt instruments. He uses blunt instruments like blunt instruments. His major themes are death, hatefulness, death, pain, and death. He looks like Curly Howard possessed by demons from hell. He tries to that's the main thing. He tries to pass off Lake Mead as the Caribbean Sea. His films have the moral compass of David Berkowitz. And I think that best describes the movies of Coleman Francis. Anybody who's seen like The Beast of Yucca Flats, or especially The Beast of Yucca Flats and Red Zone Cuba, know for a fact they are painful films to watch. I mean, I would love to, it's like in the case of Red Zone Cuba, which I think was the last of the quote unquote trilogy he did, The plot is really hard to follow. It's like these three convicts who end up getting roped into being part of some crack troop who are conducting a landing on the Bay of Pigs. And just the fact they try to make, Lake Mead look like the Caribbean Sea is even more laughable. But it's just like, it's such a painful film to watch. And then it veers off into this other plot where they're trying to find some treasure in a tungsten mine.
And then they get into a diner and they like, there's just so much going on in that movie.
And the edit, and they're right. The editing is so bad. It's like he just edits with like a jackknife or something. It's like these jump cuts he does in the film are just awful.
Well, nothing can match the musical stylings of a wonderful John Carradine.
Yes, and that
at
was
the beginning of the film.
And that was the thing. He was kind of like almost like when Wood had Bela Lugosi in Plan 9 for Outer Space, which was only like Bela Lugosi and like repurposed footage. It was very much the same way. John Carradine gets like third or fourth billing, and he only really appears in like the first few minutes of the movie, sort of to frame the storyline, and also does like you said, that great song, Night Train to Mundo Fine. to be blessed with such an instrument.
I mean, yeah, totally. That was one of those situations.
I'll be honest, I kind of do like that song.
I mean, it's not a bad tune, but
yes,
it was like one of those like they needed to get at least a star. It was like they hired the Bruce Willis of their day.
True. And, it's like at that point, I think
Willis
Carradine was kind of slumming it anyways.
Movies. Pretty much.
Yeah. But oh my goodness,
but Red Zone Cuba.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch. Even watching the MST3K, it's hard to watch. Oh
gosh, the funniest part of that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's just like I said. Everything in that movie goes on. It's like, what the hell's going on? I don't understand it.
And the best part is the guy they try to pass off as Castro with like the phony beard.
Oh my god!
I mean, even at one point, Crow makes a comment. When Castro's at his desk, saying, "Get real beard." And it's like, and even the invasion part, I think they're like trying to make like 5 to 10 people look like an entire invasion crew. So it's like you have like the same 5 people running back and forth throughout the scene, and they're really trying to sell it off as it's like this big invasion on the Bay of Pigs, and it
made no sense.
Oh, it didn't, and that was I think that was the other thing they mentioned about Coleman Francis is like his films tend to have a preoccupation with light aircraft, parachuting, coffee, or cigarettes. They're serving as props or sensors of the conversation, and gunning down the suspect without trial at the end of the film's conclusion, which at the end of Red Zone Cuba, you do have, Coleman Francis's character, thankfully being shot to death.
Yeah.
And the other joke is, the fact that, they keep on making jokes that he looks like Curly Howard, a very angry Curly Howard throughout the entire film, which he does.
I to be blessed with that kind of look.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I don't know. That's just a curse.
But both that film and The Beast of Yucca Flats, it just feels like he's trying to like make this social commentary. Like I don't know how much you remember of The Beast of Yucca Flats. It's another one which has Ed Wood alum, another one, Tor Johnson in that film.
Oh yeah.
As he can't play really much else as the Beast.
Oh yeah.
And there's this whole line that they keep on trying. I think the film came out in like 1961, and there's this whole line that I think he thought this must have been the greatest line in the world, just saying, "Flag on the moon. What does it mean?" And he says that it's repeated throughout the whole film. Flag on the moon, which if you think about it, that was like 7, 8 or 9 years before the moon landing. So I mean, I'm sure he could say that. Oh, you see, I predicted it. I'm goddamn Coleman Francis. I predict everything. But that's the other. A lot of people, there's not really much known about him outside of those films. I know he did some acting, and it sounded like that he took his own life in 1974 because he was apparently found in his garage with a plastic bag over his head and a tube from his from the exhaust of his car attached to his mouth. So
Yep, died at 53.
Yep.
Arteriostosis is the official cause of death. His body was found in the back of a station wagon at the Vine Street Ranch market with a plastic bag over his head and a tube going from his mouth over his throat.
That sounds like suicide to me.
Yeah, I would say.
But yeah, that was the other thing. The other thing about his incompetence was the fact that he the whole thing with Beast of Yucca Flats is all filmed on a silent movie camera, and they ended up sort of overdubbing it later with the music and this narration. But he did this thing where he filmed the characters whenever they were talking, their heads wouldn't be visible, so he wouldn't have to synchronize the lips. I mean, that's some fine filmmaking right there.
That's like student filmmaking.
That really is student filmmaking. I think that's below student filmmaking, really.
I've
seen better student films than that, so I'll give them credit.
I mean, that's a pretty bad movie.
It also has that weird ending, which was improvised, where, the character, whoever the monster Tor Johnson is supposed to be playing, is dead on the ground, and this jackrabbit just sort of hopped into the scene next to him, and he just sort of puts his hand on the rabbit and just pets it. And I guess that ends up like showing his quote unquote humanity at the end of the film. And it was all just spur of the moment.
It was all part of the plan.
Yep.
It's part of the director's vision.
The other one I remember is not as remembered was that he did a film called Skydivers, and it followed the same sort of thing. It was, again, shown on Mystery Science Theater, and it followed the sort of thing of coffee, death, parachuting, planes. And again, it had like these really bad jump cuts where it's like, you'd have this like really bad cut in the film.
Yeah, pretty much.
He was just such I guess the word hack is used a lot, but he was definitely, as far as filmmaking is concerned, a real hack. And I mean,
he was in a bunch of other movies,
but none of
them
yeah.
But he was pretty much like a bit player. He's like,
exactly.
like I'm looking at his list on actor films, and like all of them say uncredited.
Yes. So he was like you said, like a bit play, somebody, they get to play a character in the background or something.
Even in Skydivers, he says it goes uncredited.
Yep. He's uncredited in his own film. And I think he's the guy where, somebody, when they're looking at somebody flying and some woman or somebody says, "Have you ever been high?" And he's like, "All the time." Like he's supposed to be a stoner or something like that. And it's like, oh, shut up. But he, that was.
So basically he's a crappy filmmaker.
Yeah. I think he's a much worse filmmaker than Ed Wood.
But the next one on the list.
Another Mystery Science Theater 2000 film, and one that MST made famous. And unlike Coleman Francis, this is the director's only film.
They usually are.
Yeah, it's his only film credit, and I think the only film he ever made, Manos, The Hands of Fate. Which, it's always a bad start when you said he was he made the film on a dare. Somebody actually dared him to make the film, and
my God!
And
Harold P. Warren.
Yep, who was actually a fertilizer salesman, which was another joke when they were showing. I think they were showing on Mystery Science Theater. They said, Harold P. Warren. You can look him up in the under fertilizing in El Paso, which was where the film was made.
I mean, if it wasn't for Mystery Science Theater 3000, a lot of these movies wouldn't even be recognized.
But I think this is a hard call because, I mean, Coleman Francis is a horrible director, but I still think Manos might be the most incompetent and worst film of all time, and probably the king of the Z movies.
Oh God, yeah.
Just because
I think that you're gonna have a whole lot of reasons why, but this is a movie that the plot makes no sense.
Oh, absolutely no sense.
It's all over the place. There's no real rhyme or reason for why everybody's doing what they're doing.
Again, it's another film that's like filmed on a Bell and Howell silent movie camera.
Pretty
much. It's one of those cameras. If you have you can remember the film having a lot of the long, drawn out parts before it cuts, because what they would do with a Bell and Howell camera is you'd wind the camera up, then you'd you'd click the button down and it would film. And then it would come to the end of the thing. You'd have to wind it up again and film another scene. So that's why suddenly you'd have one cut to another, because you couldn't, they were just filming it that way. And the other thing is they didn't have sound on it, but it was one of those things, the crew's like, well, how are you going to do it? And how are you going to do this? And Warren's just like, oh, we'll get everything done in editing and post, and we'll put everything in. And I think it was like only 3 or 4 people actually doing the voices. I think Harold P. Warren was one of them. His wife I think they did the voice of the voice of the one who played the wife in the movie, and also playing the voice of the little girl. Yes, the little girl's being played by, like, I think a woman in her 30s or 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 3 or 4 people who were doing the same voice. And they even pointed it out in Mystery Science Theater 3000 at one point in the film when he's talking between him and the police officer. It's just Harold P. Warren doing both the father and the police officer, and you can tell right away.
I mean, yeah, it was so weird. And not only that, but just the visualization. Okay, let's just talk about one of the more interesting characters in the movie.
Torgo?
Torgo. I mean,
we were both thinking Torgo.
Yeah, I mean, he literally is the glue that holds that movie, the weirdness of that movie together.
And what's weird is people, I didn't get it at the time when I first saw it, why he was supposed to have big knees, but apparently he was supposed to be a satyr.
Yeah.
And he was wearing this contraption on his legs that actually ended up giving him a horrible knee injury.
Yeah, it did.
So it's like,
guy by the name of John Reynolds.
Yep.
We're probably the only people who are going to remember who the hell he was.
Basically, yes. And he ended up committing suicide shortly after the making of this film. It's like, I guess he was kind of a mess. And it's just like, wow.
Yep, pretty much.
So, he was probably already had problems, but, the problems inflicted on whatever they put, the contraption they used to make him look like he was wearing his Depends the wrong way.
Actually, he shot himself in the head, John Reynolds Torgo, before the movie came out, October 16, 1966, a month before the film was to premiere. He was just 25, and it was only film appearance.
Oh, that's awful. And you as a filmmaker yourself, I'm sure this would probably drive you nuts, but they ended up doing filming the night shots actually at night. And the problem with that is they'd have the lights on, the lights with the camera for, the night shots. And when you're shooting at night during warm weather, what does light attract? It
Bugs.
Attracts moths. So you suddenly you'll have scenes at night where suddenly all these moths are flying around the camera and into the light.
Unbelievable.
And most of the time, historically with Hollywood, what they would do is they would shoot night for day. Some of it you'd notice, some of it you wouldn't. In some cases, like, if you're watching like the old Hammer Hound of the Baskervilles, you can definitely tell when they put a lens on the camera, because it's like the sky still looks like a day shot, but it's like the camera lens is a bit darker. I give them credit for trying to, actually make it look authentic and shoot it at night, but it so sucked.
Yeah. So like when this thing was released, it was released in like to this like one little theater in El Paso, Texas.
That's right.
It just basically fell off the map.
Yeah, I guess what had happened during post-production is, it's like everything, they tried to sync, they rushed syncing up the sound. The voices sounded ridiculous. So when they ended up, one of the guys who was part of the production, said in a documentary about Manos called Hotel Torgo that, they'd gone to the premiere, and they were all, of course, excited about this. This is a big premiere for them in El Paso, Texas. And I guess they're all sitting in the front row. And then he says, at one point he goes, I knew something was really going wrong with this movie is when they closed the car door, and then the sound of the door slamming came like 5 or 6 seconds after the door was shut. And so they could hear snickers from people in the audience. And then the laughter during it started getting louder and louder. So he said they all started like shrinking down in their seats to the point where they all just like snuck out before the film was over. because they were just that embarrassed.
Yeah, pretty much. That sounds about right.
Those were like, those. I think those two. I think it's hard. It's hard to say, but I really think between like Coleman Francis and Harold P. Warren, I think he still might be the worst director or the worst filmmaker ever. And I mean, like I said, it doesn't take away from the fact that Ed Wood was an incompetent filmmaker, but I think these guys gave Ed Wood a run for their money, because I think in Ed Wood's case, he still seemed like, even when he was doing like the sexploitation films, he enjoyed filmmaking.
Oh yeah.
If we were to believe the documentary, the Tim Burton documentary, where he's like very overly enthusiastic and believing he's creating, the Citizen Kane of movie making, but still, it seemed like he enjoyed himself, and it does kind of show in his films.
The thing about Ed Wood, I think the big thing about Ed Wood is that he did have a colorful, eclectic group of characters around him.
Yes,
and he kind of represented that Hollywood spirit a little bit.
Yeah.
And when you watch Ed Wood, especially when you talk about like, bad filmmakers and that sort of thing, Ed Wood always comes up. But the thing about Ed Wood is that he didn't let his bad movies stop him.
Exactly.
And he was determined to make his magnum opus, and that's obviously Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Oh,
but even
gosh.
that didn't stop him.
Oh no.
But he had a lot of, and back in the 50s, let's just be honest, there were a lot of bad movies being made.
Oh yeah, I mean it was
a lot of cheap B movie product being
because it was
just
easy
dumped in the theaters.
It was just easy to put in the drive-ins and it was easy entertainment to make.
Yeah. And so like, Ed Wood really kind of represented that I want to be a filmmaker, dependable, just the determination to do it.
Absolutely.
And that's the charm.
Yeah. That's what you got to give him. You're right. Yeah, that's what you got to give him credit for.
I mean, it's not like, it's not like anything like, The Room with Tommy Wiseau.
Oh God, The Room.
That's a movie that's hard.
I've heard that. I mean, that's kind of the modern day, I guess that would be kind of the modern day Coleman
So The
Francis.
Room was made in 2003.
For those listeners who don't know about this.
Yeah. So people need to know, all right, first of all, The Room was a movie that this guy named Tommy Wiseau made in 2003. He spent millions of dollars making this movie with another individual. I forget the guy's name. But basically, they spent money. They literally built an alley set right next to an alley. Okay? Like they shot, all right, the scene where he comes out like, I did not hit her. I did not.
Oh, hi, Mark. Yes.
That's him. That is literally, all right. He literally is walking out on a green screen set on top of a building. And they literally built a set on top of a building with him coming out on this thing when they could have used a building.
Yes.
Okay, they're in freaking Los Angeles. You're telling me you didn't have like buildings you could have like shot an alley scene in, or it's crazy because this guy. And,
I suppose if he was trying to do something with a green screen and there was like a giant gorilla behind him and he wanted to do that, film that on top of a building, that's one thing. But if you're just filming a scene on top of the building with a green screen that's going to replicate the top of a building, even though you're on top of a building, you see where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I mean, this was a vanity project.
Yes,
that he was like, I want to be a great filmmaker. You don't even know who the hell he is from. I don't even know where this guy is like wrapped in mystery. Nobody knows who the hell he is. Nobody knows how long ago he was born. Nobody knows where he's from. He
really is the Coleman Francis of our generation.
He is. So like he produces this movie and it becomes, he actually spent, I don't know where he got this money, but he made this movie and he put a billboard on like in the middle of Hollywood, and people it was like there for 2 years. It became like this underground cult hit.
Right.
Until this guy who has a website apparently reviewed it for everybody to see. And like then he got upset because they reviewed it and he sued him for copyright infringement. And then all of a sudden now it becomes a big, huge hit. Suddenly everybody wants to see it. And then they made a movie a la Ed Wood.
Yes,
called
the disaster
Artist.
Yeah.
And and that movie basically chronicles the production of the Ring.
Right.
And I haven't seen that, but like honestly, it's like the charm of Ed Wood is not there.
That's what I hear. Yeah. I hear I hear people said it was a very good movie, which is hard. I suppose it's hard to sort of rate now considering, the allegations against James Franco, but still at the time they considered it to be a great, a great documentary on the movie. But I get that impression, like you said, it doesn't have that sort of, that sort of charm that, the movie, which made the movie Ed Wood by, Tim Burton's Ed Wood, a great film.
We're all just one Twitter post from being canceled. That's why I'm not on Twitter.
Twitter's a dumpster fire. It's just a big old. To be honest with you, one of the things I've always wanted to do was sort of make a documentary about Coleman Francis, sort of the way, Ed Wood or The Disaster Artist or Shadow of the Vampire was made, but sort of do a kind of like what Ed Wood did with a fictional version of Coleman Francis, where in Ed Wood it's like so idealized and gosh shucks, I just want to make the greatest film ever made. I just want to like portray Coleman Francis as a complete bastard in the movie, because that's the way it comes off in a lot of his films. Is it's like he just does not, it's like in a lot of the plots he just does not seem like a nice guy. So I'd like to do like the chronicles of him, making The Beast of Yucca Flats or Red Zone Cuba, just thinking that he's making some sort of political statement, and people are like, oh, you're just full of shit.
Another film that we should definitely mention on the bad movies list.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is my personal feeling on this film. Some people may think it's so bad it's good, and that's the reason why they've made so many sequels of it. But I do not understand the appeal of this movie. Is Sharknado.
Oh, the Sharknado movies, yes.
Okay.
Which we would, yeah.
It should have just stopped at the first one, honestly. It's just such a dumb concept that it feels like somebody lost a bet.
Yeah.
Like somebody said, I'll bet I can get like this movie made. And they're just like, it's like name that tune. I can name that tune in 7 notes. I can name that tune in 6 notes. I can.
And almost like the other guy said,
okay, name that tune.
And almost like the other guy who's working with him said, well, if you get Tara Reid to be in this movie, I'll do this movie with you. You got Tara Reid to be in this movie. Oh, God damn it. I guess I have to be in this movie. What's that?
John Hurt is in this movie. This is the first one.
Okay.
And it's just the most ridiculous concept I think I've ever seen of any film. And then what it just boggles my mind that suddenly people are like, this is funny. Oh! And they're like,
I feel like they had like a success with the first one, and like any bad idea, it's like, well, we made money on
nothing else to do. We
yeah,
don't
we
have
made
writing
money on
talent.
this. Exactly. We made money on this. So why don't we stretch out this idea as far as we can?
Let's beat it like a dead shark.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that was just, it's like, then it just like spanned all those other movies like Birdemic or.
Which is another one. And this is another one that they actually freaking made a sequel to, is Birdemic.
And you watch it and it's one of those things like, the birds look like somebody's screensaver when they're trying to attack them and the birds are just flying there. It looks like some sort of screensaver on a. That's what I was going to say. It's like a screensaver from somebody's like 1996 computer or something.
Oh my God!
It's like somebody still had their.
Yeah, it's those movies that really kind of drive me crazy a little bit.
I don't blame you. It's just like they're not. But that's the problem with them, is they're not fun to watch.
No,
it's not. Like, like if you watch an Ed Wood, if you watch some of the B movies like The Killer Shrews, which is kind of a boring film, but or you watch like Attack of the Iguana,
yeah,
the giant Gila monster, films like that, they still got a goofiness you can enjoy about them. But I mean, like the Sharknado ones, it's like they're kind of joyless, really.
And then, like, the whole joke of that film was like, let's get as many cameos as we possibly can to be
Yeah.
in these movies. And so anybody who was like a Z-list star would end up being in these movies, including Jared Fogle.
The Subway guy.
Yes, Subway guy.
Oh, that's a great thing to have in your movie. I'm sure. I'm sure they want to mention that now.
Yeah, he got promptly cut from any future showings.
Gee, I wonder why.
But then there are those movies that you have everything you possibly could have to have a great movie. You have a good cast, you have a good lead actor, you have a good lead co-star, you have cameos, everything else like that. And I'm talking about Geely.
Oh, Geely.
Okay, that
Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez's Vanity Project.
Oh my God, this movie. I mean, that is, you want to talk about painful to watch?
Yeah.
The trailer has the only funny joke. I mean,
I don't remember
ever seen it. The joke was like so this is a comedy about these two mob people who work together to kidnap a mentally challenged man who's apparently the judge's son or
Are you kidding me?
nephew. Yeah, and they're holding him hostage for this mobster who is apparently going on trial because this other mobster wants to impress the hell out of it. And of course, this is a movie this movie takes place over 2 days in a hotel room, and there's some sexual activity or sexual there's some sexual tension between Ben Affleck and this is when they were dating too.
Oh,
before the two of them. And it was it has this it just basically them in a hotel room while they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with this guy, waiting to find out what's going on. It's just like they're trying to be. It's just this guy is trying to be Tarantino when he obviously can't.
Gee, I wonder why I never saw this movie.
And oh my God, it's so bad. It really is. And like they keep on telling this mentally challenged guy that they're going to take him to where the Baywatch is. and
God.
And it has a cameo. It has a couple big cameos with there's Christopher Walken in it.
He must have been slumming it, or
yeah. And then it has Al Pacino in it.
Really?
Yeah, these big actors. I mean, these big actors.
Yeah.
And they end up being in this really crappy movie, and they're in there for like one scene.
Yeah.
But that was a painful film, and that was the movie that I think really kind of killed Bennifer.
Yeah, but they're back now, folks. They're
Apparently. Back for the sequel, Geely 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, that movie was terrible. But yeah, so
but that was like a big budget. That was a movie with like a massive budget, didn't it?
It was $57 million. $57 million. And all they're doing is going from a hotel to a car to a hotel and then the beach at the end. It's so fucking bad.
Well, I think it's something I brought up in I might have brought up in past episodes we've done, but I taught a student a film appreciation class for seventh to eighth graders several years back, and one of the things I brought up in the class was knowing the differences. What makes it a bad film? Is it a film? Is it actually a really bad film, or is it just a film you don't like? And because I had a problem with a lot of the students when they'd write their review of the film, they'd mention the film being the worst film ever made, including I showed them Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and one of my students said he thought it was the worst film ever made. And after 4 or 5 times, hearing certain films being the worst film ever made, I'm just like, okay, if you're gonna do this, I'm gonna show you the worst film ever made. So I ended up bringing into class Manos: The Hands of Fate, and
Jesus,
not the Mystery Science Theater 3000 one.
Oh no!
Oh yes. And so I prefaced it. I started the class out. I said, I just want to say, I've heard a lot with people saying films being the worst film ever made, and I want you guys to keep in mind: is it the worst film ever made because you just don't like the film, or is it the worst film ever made because it's actually a bad film? And what makes a bad film? And I said, and a lot of the times, I said, what can make a bad film? It's like bad writing, bad cinematography, bad bad acting, good act. You could have the greatest actors in the world, and if it's a poorly written film, there's no chance in hell. There's a very minute chance in hell they can say save the film. So I sat them down, and I showed this version of Manos: The Hands of Fate, which had a few extra scenes that weren't shown on Mystery Science Theater 3000. One of them had the master like slapping one of his wives repeatedly with it's just like the shot of him just slapping the camera. It's like, and it goes on for 5 or 6 seconds, and then she's like, "You can't hurt me anymore. Slap me, slap me." And it's just like, and I'm showing this to class. I'm getting a little embarrassed watching this because I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to get in trouble with some parents for doing this, but I'm proving a point. And at the end of it, they're all just like, okay, so that's what a bad movie looks like. And I was like, yeah, that's what a bad movie looks like.
Yep.
Something that looks like it was shot on, it looked like it, something that, your grandparents would shoot on home movie cameras. In most of these films we've mentioned, I mean, like Red Zone Cuba and Manos: The Hands of Fate, people can, either stream or watch on YouTube. Especially, if you want to see it, see the film in its original form without the Mystery Science Theater commentary, I'd probably look on YouTube or something like that to try to find, especially like The Beast of Yucca Flat or Red Zone Cuba.
Yeah.
You're in for a slog, but still, if you want to see the film as it was presented, good luck to you.
Now, another film that is pretty bad, that makes absolutely no sense, that I think that fits into this whole theme. I don't know if you remember this movie, but I remember seeing, like, previous to the movie, I never saw it when it was in theaters, but I saw it later. Mac and Me.
Yep, I actually ended up seeing it on VHS in like 88, 89. And
My
I stopped it. I stopped 3 minutes into the film. I just could not watch it. Because I already knew from the trailers I seen, it's like it's an ET ripoff. And I have what's it called, opinions about ET. I can share at a later date, but still, this is far worse because it's like I ended, again, it was one of these films they ended up showing on Mystery Science Theater 3000's revival.
Yeah, they did that. And
seeing it again, it's like, oh my God, this film's like somebody's, the aliens and everything. This film's like somebody's fever dream. That movie made absolutely no sense again. No, it didn't.
But the other thing too is like,
pretty nice.
Like, they had like a McDonald's tie-in.
Yep, that's right.
Somehow, like, and that movie is just like, I don't think McDonald's knew what the hell they were getting into.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that once they saw the final product, they're like, oh man, what do we do?
Damn it.
Can you imagine getting those Happy Meal toys? Yeah. That's a sad Happy Meal.
Boy, we're McFucked.
That was
This is a worse disaster than the McDLT.
Oh, or the McCool.
Yes.
Remember that, the McCool?
I don't remember the McCool.
You'd have the cool side and you have the hot side.
That's the McDLT.
Yeah. Oh, that's the McDLT. Did they have Jason Alexander? They had Jason. Was like, oh my God.
Jason Alexander with hair, just dancing around, like making like this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to fast food burgers since.
I should
strawberry
cosplay
shakes.
that.
I don't know.
Yes. I should cosplay that. That'd be
if you could find like
funny.
a McDLT, because it would have been in like the styrofoam containers with like the burgers and the toppings, the burgers on one side, the toppings on the or the lettuce and tomatoes and all that on the other side. If you could do that and just like dance around Northeast Comic Con.
Oh my God, he looks like he's wearing a. He looks. Oh my God, he looks like he's wearing like a Miami Vice suit.
Yes, because that would have been that era. Everybody with the sleeves rolled up.
Oh my God, the McDLT.
Everybody who still thinks like the 80s was all great. No, not all of the 80s was great.
Not all of it. Not the McDLT.
Not the McDLT. Rolled up jackets, spandex, and a lot of neon. A lot of neon.
Let me see. Getting into the bad movies. Troll 2. You remember this one?
No, oh, wait a minute. Wait. No,
Okay.
was that the one? Was that the one they ended up showing on Mystery Science Theater 3000, or was that another? Was
No.
that Hobgoblin?
That was Hobgoblins.
That was an awful
Okay.
one.
So Troll 2, which was released in 1990, was actually another one of these movies where it kind of like tries to go off on the success of a previous film, but it has absolutely nothing to do with it. It was actually
Right.
called Goblin, was the original title. But what happened is that these guys, they made this movie about this town called Nilbog or whatever that this family moves to, and Nilbog backwards is goblin, and it's another terrible movie where there's a lot of crazy weirdness going on as well. Let me see if I can actually get like the plot synopsis, because I can't tell you what happens in that movie.
No, it definitely sounds like the movies you'd mentioned, where it's like you remember the movie, but you never remember what it's about.
Okay. A vacationing family discovers that an
It's
entire
always a
town they're
vacation
visiting-
family, isn't it?
It always is. That they're visiting is inhabited by goblins disguised as humans who plan to eat them. And these goblins are like, if like, Ghoulies didn't have a budget.
Fantastic.
I mean, Ghoulies is a pretty stupid movie, but it's stupid fun to watch.
Not as
but-
much fun as the Groovy Ghoulies.
Oh, but this movie is terrible.
Oh, I can
Um,
imagine.
Apparently there was a guy who made a documentary called Best Worst Movie, and it was one of those films that was released, and it was a 2009 documentary called Best Worst Movie. And let me see, it's directed by Michael Stephenson, who was a child star of Troll 2. So
Wonderful.
he was the kid in Troll 2,
Yeah.
and he made a documentary about it because, he was desperate apparently in 2009 to kind of reclaim some fame or
Right.
whatever. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Troll 2. That movie was terrible.
No, I
That
never
was
saw that
terrible.
one. There's a lot of.
You-
It seems like there was a lot of those movies from that era that sort of, bad, animatronics, bad puppetry.
well,
Had
there was
everything.
also like let's go into like some of the other films, just honorable mentions that I have to mention.
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay. One of the things I have to mention is Showgirls.
Oh gosh. And that was a
that
movie
was
that
another-
that was a movie they were trying to hype as the next big thing. I remember that.
Oh, they tried to make sequels to that. They had Joe Esterhaas, who was the writer of such films as Basic Instinct and Jade, made this movie, and he was given like $3 million off of a draft he wrote on a cocktail napkin.
That sounds like the way Manos: The Hands of Fate was planned, because after the bet was made, he started laying out the plot on a napkin,
I mean, that was it. He wrote,
which just proves all great films are just planned out on a cocktail napkin. God.
Paul Verhoeven made this movie with that, and basically it was NC-17, and honestly, there is such a thing as too much, and
Yeah.
that was too much.
Didn't it have what's her name from Saved by the Bell in it as a
it was
a dancer?
It was Elizabeth Berkley's first major huge film after Saved by the Bell. It was supposed to break her out in the show business,
But it never really did.
apparently the bombing of this movie was so bad at the box office that her agent basically
Yes.
dropped her as a client.
Wow. That's when you know. That's when you've stepped in something bad.
Yeah,
Because that was around the era they also had that movie. Was it the movie Striptease? Was around that same time too, which was
but
not a
that
great
one
movie.
at least that's better. I mean, that's a comedy. This was a drama on purpose that was a comedy on accident.
Right.
And it's not even that funny.
No, I mean, I think that's the sad thing about some of the movies is like when they try, when they, try to be dramatic, but they end up coming off as funny, but even then it's not really that funny. Or the ones
I think probably one of the best ideas to look at that movie is to actually imagine that it's her character from Saved by the Bell in Showgirls and not this character that she's written.
well,
So
if that's the case, that just proves Zach Morris is trash. Because it sounds like something that little asshole would have gotten her into, just so he could get in, just so he and his douchey friends can get into the strip club.
Let me see. Another.
Oh, that was the other thing with I think
Yep.
The Room is after it was considered, after it was supposedly a drama, but everybody considered it a comedy. He was like, "Oh no, this was supposed to be funny," and just like, "Oh bullshit, it was."
Oh my God, yeah. Like that's the other thing. They were
Yeah.
trying to make it sound like it wasn't a big. Oh yeah, we're being funny on purpose. He's like,
Yeah.
no, this is a serious film.
Yeah,
Serious film. Like 20 minutes of him having like a naked sex scene with some girl in the movie.
Oh, and
It's ridiculous.
I've seen bits and pieces of that movie, and he's not somebody you really want to see naked because his body has this like really Play-Doh look to it.
He's definitely just like, oh,
He's
never
like
mind.
he's like if you took you took a bunch of kneaded erasers and tried to make a human sculpture out of it, it would sort of the way he'd look.
I mean, look, if that's what people like to watch, then good for
Oh.
them.
Exactly.
But no.
I think
another-
I think a lot of people would be hard pressed to want to watch him, going, bumping uglies with somebody.
Another bad movie mention is Spice World.
I never saw Spice World, but that was one of those ones that had a lot of famous British actors at the time. But it was
It was the
trying to be a Hard
Spice
Day's
Girls.
Yeah, it was trying to be the Spice Girls version of A Hard Day's Night.
Yep. That was pretty bad.
Oh yeah,
And then of course, and it has like Roger Moore in it. They had Roger Moore in this movie,
yeah, he was slumming it.
apparently. And of course, as far as remakes go, like what as far as like remakes, everybody thinks remakes suck. I think remakes suck. Which is your like worst remake ever made? I'm
Oh
curious.
gosh, that's a good question because it seems like there's so many of them. I'd have to.
I mean, there's in the last 20 years, we've had so many remakes.
Oh yeah. I just
But,
feel like
like-
there's certain ones, you just can't. I feel like, when they redid King Kong, that was completely unnecessary.
That was a bad one, yeah.
Yeah, it's like films like that where it's like there's certain properties like Sherlock Holmes or Frankenstein or even The Wizard of Oz, which I think lend itself to interpretation primarily because it was based on a series of books. Whereas there's certain other movies like Citizen Kane. I'd never want to see a remake of Citizen Kane.
My personal like if I had to choose like one of the worst remakes of all time, let me see. There's a couple of them. The
But to think of it
Omen's
on
one of them.
Yeah.
The Day the Earth Stood Still is another.
Yes.
That's pretty bad. Let me see. There's
Even
another
something
one.
like War of the Worlds, I didn't like the new one they made, but
Yeah.
it's open to interpretation because it was based on I feel like anything that's like based on a book or a comic book character is sort of open to interpretation.
What actually my worst remake of all time
Hmm.
is Red Dawn.
Oh, yeah. I could see that.
That's like my worst remake of all time.
If-
There are a lot of bad remakes, but like Red Dawn is such a classic film,
Yes.
like that's pretty bad. But actually, here's actually my opinion. My worst remake actually is Rollerball.
Yes, I could see it. Yeah,
That's John McTiernan
really.
of all people. John McTiernan, who directed movies like Die Hard,
Yeah.
action movie guy, and then of course he makes this movie in 2002. It sucked complete donkey ass. I mean, it was so bad. You have LL Cool J, and it was like, why are you making this movie?
It just doesn't seem necessary. It's like, well, the original Rollerball was another it was a 70s B movie, right?
It was a 70s sci-fi B movie.
That's it,
but
yeah.
It had like a point to it.
Right.
But
I
the thing about it,
I almost feel like these people feel like, it's like, we're going to try to take that concept, but we're going to make it better. And it's like, it very rarely does that ever work out.
he hasn't moved. And the thing about John McTiernan is he hasn't made any movies since then.
That one kind of broke him.
Yeah, I think that movie just completely broke him. It's terrible.
I think we can't have a B movie discussion without mentioning the films of Roger Corman.
Oh, of course not.
But it's funny with Corman is, yeah, he made B movies and sometimes Z movies, but I think he was a little bit above like an Ed Wood, where, he made the Edgar Allan Poe films, which were just absolutely brilliant films, which starred the phenomenal Vincent Price in these movies. So, I mean, Vincent Price was one of these actors who could, you could have the rest of the cast be like low grade, and Vincent Price would be able to carry that film.
Well, I mean, John Corman, he makes crap, but he makes crap that I like.
Exactly. Roger Corman's just always been, I ended up watching a documentary on him one on Tubi not too long ago, and it's really a great, insightful look at his career.
Yeah, I mean, like he was to B-movie horror in the 1960s what Golan Globus was to action movies in the 1980s.
I don't know. I kind of place him a little bit higher than the Golan Globus.
Yeah, I mean, but like I said, he made crap, but it was good crap. It was tried. It had a certain sense and charm to it. That's exactly it. And he could make like the invasions from outer space type of movies, and then suddenly make an adaptation of the Fall of the House of Usher, and just be like, just have it be absolutely brilliant with just such a great cast. And think about all the people whose careers he helped start, like Jack Nicholson. Oh God, yeah.
It's just like the list. Henry Fonda's his dad. I think it wasn't it one of the Francis Ford Coppola, or was it somebody else he started? Was it Coppola's career he started, or was it somebody else?
So many.
Yeah.
Honestly, he's like I'm serious. Like even like like all the major directors. Like there's so many of them actually.
And I think in the documentary at the time he was making his giant killer dinosaur sharkfish movie.
I'm looking at his IMDb. He is credited with 515 credits for producer.
Yeah. And I would never call what he does as schlock. I think that's kind of a disservice of him. I think it's yes, it's B movies. Yes, it's some of it can maybe be categorized as exploitation. It's exploitation in nature. But still, he did a lot of entertaining movies.
Totally. Director, he's got 56 credits. Let me see. He has, like I said, actor, 44 credits. Oh my God. He's got just so many things.
A young James Cameron working on, what was it, Battle Beyond the Stars?
Cameron. I mean, come on. How could this guy has been making this since like the 1950s.
I know. And here he is. Was he like 96 now?
He was born. When was he born? Hold on. 1926, April 5th.
So, I mean, here he is. He's in his 90s and he's still making films and still enjoying himself.
I know. I mean, it's just like he's just, at this point, it's just like the easiest thing to do for him, just to go ahead and do it. But totally, Roger Corman is like the king of B movie cinema.
Oh yeah.
And really, I mean, he lasted longer than Cannon Films, obviously.
Yes. And much like an Ed Wood, he just loves what he does.
Yeah. He doesn't care. It's entertainment. He knows exactly where it is. It's not like he's like, you go to the Oscars and you get all these people get all wiped out, like, oh my gosh, all these great films and everything else. I'm like, no. It's not like that. That's not how it's supposed to be.
No.
make
And-
movies that people want to watch.
And what's funny is a lot of the films that were like maybe won Oscars in the past, people have, in retrospective, have found it's like they weren't really that good.
No,
There have been some Oscar-winning films that, in retrospect, they say, no, that film kind of sucked. It just must have been a lean year or something.
like I said, he doesn't give up. He's definitely a good filmmaker.
Another one definitely like that are, of course, Trauma Pictures. Everybody,
Trauma,
which is,
Trauma Team release.
yep, fat guy goes nutsoid.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Let me take a look at this. Kaufman made those. Let me see. Trauma Production Company. Let's do a little search on that. Let me see. 45 years. Lloyd Kaufman.
Again, with that like sort of guerrilla film mentality of just go in and just,
There's
make it.
There's a lot that a person could learn about filmmaking from Trauma.
oh yeah.
One of the things that he did, like a movie, he did a book called "All I Need to Learn About Filmmaking I Learned While Making the Toxic Avenger." And one of the parts of the book, he talks about sex scenes and nudity.
Yes.
And he said, you shoot that stuff first.
Gotcha.
That way, the reason why you do that is so that if like halfway through the film or 75% through the film, if you have to shoot the nudity and the sex scenes and the girl says, no, I don't want to do it, then you have to work around her
right.
to get the sex scene. So that's one of the things that's one of the tactics he uses, just shoot the sex scenes first and the nudity first. That way it's already in the can, so they can't say, no, I'm not doing that. And
Right.
if they say, no, I'm not going to do that, then fine, get another actor in,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But that was one of the things that Trauma did. And they were just like,
And they did a
they're
lot.
huge.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They had like so many movies.
Surf Nazis Must Die.
Oh,
Sergeant Kabuki Man.
Toxic Avenger, Class of Nukem High.
Yep. Wasn't that the one that had Ron Jeremy as the principal?
I think so. Tromeo and Juliet, Sizzle
Yep.
Beach, USA. Oh my gosh. Like just like you want to talk about like, exploitation cinema.
Oh yeah.
This is it.
Oh, definitely.
And it's just they just turn up they turn up the cheese factor and the gore factor and the nudity factor up so much. They know exactly what their
They
audience
turn it up
is.
to 11. It all goes up to
It was
11.
Trauma was basically making products specifically for the VHS nasty home video market.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
And-
That's when I really remember those films coming out.
And that's exactly what Lloyd Kaufman did. He's like, okay, look, I know these movies aren't good, but people want to see these movies, and we're not Warner Brothers, or we're not making Star Wars, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. So what do we have? And so like that's what they would do. They would go.
I think that's what sort of makes them different from like Golden Globus, who are trying really to make, we're going to make a film like Star Wars. We're going to make a film like this, and you end up watching it. It's like, no, you didn't. Whereas
Or they
Trauma,
would
you
buy-
got what? Yeah.
Or they would buy some movie made by somebody like in the middle of nowhere, and it was just a crappy just a movie, but as long as it had like a sex scene in it, sure.
Yeah.
They didn't care.
Again, sounds like Coleman Francis. I mean, there was a cut scene from Beast of Yucca Flats where the character supposedly, there's a murder scene at the beginning, which isn't shown on Mystery Science Theater, where there was like a brief nudity scene because apparently Coleman liked the nudies.
Yeah.
So same idea. It's like, yeah, as long as it has sex, I love it.
That's what it was.
Yep.
Vegas in Space, Blades, Blood Hook, Blood Junkie, Bugged, Night Beast.
Is this all Golden Globus or Trauma?
These are all Trauma.
Oh, okay. That's it. I
but-
had a feeling it was, but I just wanted to make sure because we went on two different tangents.
Let me see. Nightmare Weekend, Citizen Toxie, The Toxic Avenger 4.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Which I think he said was his favorite one.
oh God. Death by Temptation.
There was also this
apparently.
thing because I ended up watching a documentary on trauma as well, where apparently there was this one, car flip scene they reused in every single one of their movies.
Yeah, because they have no budget.
And that's exactly it. It's like, we got this really great shot. We're gonna milk this for all we frickin' got.
And that was the thing. Like, I'm part of the CIA, and like, it was like really terrible movies and everything else like that. Like, surf Nazis must die. I mean, how the heck do you get that movie?
I guess with that title, the Must Die was added on later because they weren't sure if people would accept a movie with the title Surf Nazis. So they added the Must Die to it to make it say, oh yeah, you're right, Surf Nazis must die.
It's unbelievable.
But I forget the name of the actor, but he was also in he was kind of a big fat guy who was in The Toxic Avenger and a few other movies. And he seemed like he was the only guy who was actually like he kind of looked like a John Candy, and he was like the only decent actor as part of that stable. And so, because he had the one scene where, Toxie rips out his guts and, he's trying to put him back in. And of course the character dies.
Oh my God. Like,
And that was the other thing. Yeah. Cause he had the scenes of him with the voiceover, and then they had the scenes of him making making the quips to the different people. And it sounded like two different actors doing two different voices. Like you have the one voice and then you have the other pro wrestler voice.
Okay. What's your favorite bad movie? I'm just curious. If you had to pick like a bad movie right now, off the top of your head,
pick a bad movie.
Like a bad movie. If you saw it that was on TV, you just watch the whole thing, even though it's a terrible movie. It's terrible.
Oh gosh, that's hard because a lot of them, when I'm watching them, I can only see so long of it. But bad. You're asking the tough questions today because it's like asking, what's my least favorite kid?
Come on, I got to ask the tough questions. This is what this is about.
Honestly, I think I'd have to go with the generic, and I'd still have to say like something like a Plan 9 from Outer Space might be I think the perfect bad movie to watch, just because just the whole scenes of the guy scratching his head with his own gun, the really small kid style mausoleum that everybody, the clown car mausoleum, everybody comes out of at one scene. It's like the perfect shitstorm of a movie.
If I had to pick a perfect bad movie, like just a bad movie to watch that I would watch, I would probably subscribe to watch Barbed Wire. And not for
that's a bad one.
And not for the obvious reason of Pam Anderson and certain assets.
It's up for debate.
It's up for obviously debate. But I kind of like because they had Udo Kier in the movie. They had a couple other actors in the movie, and it was an attempt. It was an attempt to try to make something good.
Right.
Let me see. Let me pull that up on Barbed Wire, because there's a couple of actors in that movie that are pretty good.
That's usually the way, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Because let me see. See now, who is the guy who played like? Oh, I thought it was like the guy who played Boba Fett in the movie. No,
really?
I guess not.
Okay.
I thought it was the guy who played Boba Fett.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't. And they had some. I liked the aesthetic of it. It was like late '90s aesthetic of it. And
yes, absolutely.
But the joke's terrible. The story is sort of lame, but the aesthetic of it's kind of entertaining. And
right.
Just Pam Anderson trying to be a badass is just funny to me.
I think another director we need to, or another film we need to, I can't remember the name of the director. You might have to look that up, but there's another film that we might have to we definitely have to mention and put on our list is The Robot Monster. Because that was a film born out of whoever the director was, who I'm blanking on the name right now. Should have written it down, but he was trying to make like a social commentary. And the film
1953.
Yep. And the film was just much like Red Zone Cuba, the plot of the film is just such a mess. And
the monstrous Roman attempts to annihilate the last family alive on Earth, but he finds himself falling for their beautiful daughter.
Yep. And apparently, when the movie flopped in the theaters, the director attempted to take his own life, and but failed to, and lived to make other bad films. But that was the thing. It's like it was one of those plots where it's like, it's like it was supposed to be a dream sequence, and you get that idea at the beginning of the movie. This is all the dream taking place in the kid's mind or something like that, and for whatever weird reason is you have a guy and an older guy and who's an archaeologist, and his young assistant is working on an archaeological dig, and then you have the kid and his I don't know if it's his mother, grandmother, and sister, but they all somehow in his dream all become like one family, and it's like, how does he know all these people to begin with, And then at the end of the film, you find out it was all a dream. But the other thing mentioned about the film is, what was it? The 1,000 bubble machine, or the 500 bubble machine, which was basically just this machine that was shown behind Roman's Superior, which just blew bubbles.
Was the 1950s. It was like they needed content for the drive-ins. And
exactly.
Said, hey, what do we need here to be like a bad, dangerous, like alien? Oh, let's just get a gorilla suit and throw like a fishbowl on top of them.
But that was the sad thing. It was like the guy thought he was making a really big social commentary in this film, and he just ended up making yet another bad movie. And yeah, it was the robot monster. It was like a diver's helmet on a gorilla suit, like you said. Mm-hmm. And it was, but yeah, that was like it was bad, but it still wasn't like Harold P. Warren, Coleman Francis sort of bad. It was just, but it was a very incoherent plot.
Yeah. That was like his, he did make some more movies. He did die in 1985.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like the big film,
Another one I found out on Mystery Science Theater 3000, which had Josh Weinstein saying the great line is Tom Servo, I'm getting married in the morning. Armageddon married in the morning, people.
Oh my gosh. This whole storyline is so weird.
Yeah. Like I said, because I ended up watching it again years later, and yeah, it still was very, very incoherent, very hard to follow. You'd need a roadmap just to get out of the movie.
That's kind of the thing. Like one of the appreciations of these movies is just like that. They come up with these weird ideas, and like you don't know where the hell they came up with, or that they'd actually even work.
Yeah.
Like, did they really think that was going to work?
They must have. I mean, they did it. I mean, and it didn't stop them from making other films. I mean, I'd imagine eventually theaters just stopped them from making other films, saying, "Yeah, sorry, you don't make successful movies for us, so we're pulling the plug."
I mean, like, it's not like a bad movie like Roadhouse, which is like ridiculously funny.
Yes.
It
was also, I remember it being a very boring film too.
Oh, like Robot Monster?
Yeah, Robot Monster just being very boring.
Yeah, because in comparison to what audiences want today.
Yeah. But even for that time, it's like I can watch films from that time and not be, I can watch like The Third Man or A Touch of Evil, and I can still I can
it's called
enjoy the
filler.
movie. Yeah.
It's called filler. They use that for movies nowadays.
Oh yeah.
We need to have this movie be about 1 hour and 30 minutes. Okay, let's do a scene where he's just walking through the woods for no reason.
Well, that was like the Lippert films, like what was it, the one with Cesar Romero where it's rock climbing?
Oh yeah. Don't worry, folks. Here's some more film of them climbing up a mountain.
Exactly, and that was the way to pad the film out.
This is not padding. This is integral to the plot.
Exactly. It's like they probably only had like 3 pages of a script and said, well, how are we going to, stretch this out as far as we can? Well, just have them climbing up the same side of a mountain for the next half hour of the film.
You can usually tell how bad a movie is by how much filming, how much of that bullshit that they have.
Yeah. How much filler is compared to how much plot you actually have.
Yep. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Well, we're about 1 hour in.
Yep. I think we've we discussed
think
all we
we've-
could possibly
I think
discuss about this subject.
we've beaten this horse to death.
Oh no. Coleman, Francis, Harold Warren, and all them, they beat it to death long before us.
Well, if it wasn't for the worst, we wouldn't have the best. So
Exactly. And I mean, it just, when you're watching your next film, just, keep in mind, like what we said, is it actually a bad film, or is it just a film you don't like? I mean, because there are a lot of films out there that, a lot of people have thought have been great films, but I just didn't care for it. But they're still good, to somebody else, they're still good films. Whereas these ones, that's up for debate. I feel like if you can't really follow the plot, if you can't really, if the acting is really kind of stagey, then it's just not a good film.
Totally.
On behalf of Andrew Shanley, thank you for listening to The Mental Suppository. Until next time, this is Brett Herholtz saying,
Night train to Mundopina. Night train to the end. Running hard and running fast to meet my future and away from my past. Taking the gamble that cannot last. Night train to the end. Hell's ride to Mundopina. Hell's ride to the end. Sold my soul to the devil's pen. He draws me hard with a merciless hand, and all I bought is a handful of sand. Night train to the end. I'm on this ride 'cause I have no pride in myself or in men or in God. Now if you want to share in the price of my fare, then fill your mind with greed that is blind and wander in its evil fog. Night train to Mundopina. Night train to the end. Running hard and running fast to meet my future and away from my past. Taking the gamble that cannot last. Night train to the end.
The Mental Suppository has been produced by Brett Herholtz and Jamie Billings and distributed by M The Media Project. Theme music generously donated by Mr. B, the Gentleman Rhymer. Visit his webpage at gentlemanrhymer.com. We would love to hear from our fans. Email us at mentalsuppository@gmail.com.
Eat it. Just eat it.